When I reflect back on my life, the milestones and junctions in the road, I wonder what choices I would have made without being influenced by the military. Since I joined at such a pinnacle point in my overall sociological and psychological development, how many of my milestones were affected by my membership in a group that was very distinct from any other? I was having drinks with a friend and fellow reservist before we deployed together to Afghanistan. We were both from the same home unit. However, we were deploying with two different overseas elements. This is common for part-time soldiers. He admitted to me, after several drinks, that after basic training, no one outside the military recognized him. This affected him greatly and modified the way he would interact with his family and friends for years to come. This sentiment was echoed by my cousin's wife several years ago when she was commenting about her son returning from training. He's also a reservist. She mentioned that he stood taller and spoke more confidently. She noticed how attentive he was to his surroundings and that he seemed to be listening to what others had to say. She took this as a sign of respect. I took this as a sign that he had learned one of the basic tenets of leadership: learn from those who came before you. There are ideas in the military culture that speak of tearing someone down to rebuild them, to turn a civilian into a soldier. The idea seems a bit short-sighted in explaining the reservist experience. Sure, during basic training we're taught how to become soldiers. The only difference is you're turning into a civilian to a soldier who must become a civilian again when they return to work or school on Monday. I went from recognizing the uniqueness of my experiences to ruminating over the fact that I might have damaged my psychosocial development. Many of my first experiences that would have been influenced by a same-age peer group or family members were instead shared by my soldier cohorts and influenced largely by those who'd led us. Take the first time I shaved, for instance. I would imagine that someone close to you, like your father, would be charged with teaching the skill required to scrape the face and neck with a sharp razor, how to slather the shaving cream in a manner that makes the hair stand up a bit, what direction to move the razor based on which part of the face, what place should you pull your skin taut to make the razor glide more easily, how to prevent razor burn. All very important lessons to avoid turning your washroom into a homicide investigation. My first time shaving was a bit different, though. On most military bases, especially ones that have trade schools, there are large shared bathrooms, the counter spaces, with all the sinks and mirrors to perform morning ablutions, yeah, we called it that, are long enough to contain many wash stations. In my case, while on basic training, we had about 15 of them, spaced out just enough so our elbows wouldn't touch. Just imagine a 2-sink bathroom and add 13 sinks to that. We were given a list of items to bring for training. Under the column shaving kit, it included the obvious, a razor and the cream to go with it. Being a bit of a late bloomer to the beard game, but not anymore, obviously, I felt it was not necessary to shave and therefore did not need to bring these items. Lesson number 1, you are not an individual. If it says razor, everyone must have a razor, and depending on the instructor, they might all need to be the same make and model. Lesson number 2, even if your face has less hair than an unripe peach, you will shave. The final lesson, before the modern hygiene standard, which allows for beards in the Canadian Armed Forces, was not shaving was compared to undoing the very fabric that held the entire military institution together. I learned this the wrong way when one morning room inspection went something like this. Master Corporal, private recruit, where are your razor and shaving cream? Naive private recruit, I didn't bring any, sir. Master Corporal, don't call me sir. I work for a living. Then how did you shave this morning? I didn't shave, sir. I mean, insert here the sound of the fabric coming undone so violently and so loudly that it can be heard all the way in Ottawa at the National Defense Headquarters. Master Corporal, everyone form up outside. We are going to correct this. Forming up means putting everyone in a formation that can easily be directed to march anywhere on the base, like a small bus, except without the bus. Incidentally, forming up is often referred to as getting on the bus. We formed up and marched the best we could to the Cannex. Think of the Cannex as a combination between a convenience store and a small clothing supply store that is only found on Canadian military bases. Depending on the size of the base, it can also include a barber or a dry cleaning service. I had to borrow some money from my instructor to buy my first shaving implements, and in exchange for the purchase, I owed him a beer if I passed the course. The story of how this was possible at that time to drink at leisure whilst being underage in the reserves is best told over a beer and not here. As with beards, the rules have changed a bit. We got back on the bus, turned around, and marched back to the barracks. My instructor and the other male students entered the ablution area. As they all watched, I was instructed to shave. So, without pre-wetting my blade or adding any water to my face, I decided the best method to ensure proper lubrication of the sharp metal object upon my virgin face was to add shaving cream to my dry skin and shave in a sort of instinctual Jackson Pollock style. Since there was nothing for the razor to actually grip and cut, my face, of course, acted as the intermediary. There was another lesson my father was unable to teach me, the wonders of small, ripped little pieces of toilet paper to use as clot. The next morning, an older soldier on my course took it upon himself to teach me how to shave. We concluded that until I became of age, I should use the backside of the blade head and just fake it. Actual final lesson. As long as you complete the mission within the guidelines as stated in the Geneva Convention, no one will ever know how you got there, especially if you're a corporal. This got me thinking. How many of my milestones were influenced by the military? Was this normal? I started thinking of all my firsts while serving in the reserve. First time I learned how to handle a standard transmission, complete with double clutching. Incidentally, there's one of those trucks out there. My first broken bone, my first and last cigarette, the wonders of Jägermeister. You all get it, eh? Yeah. Of which soldiers returning from Germany during the Cold War imported before it was even fashionable. With that, the first time I drunkenly professed my heart to an unrequited love, which is also better told over a beer. Come to think of it, there was no other place that I would have rather been experiencing life. I was caught between two worlds and learning from both. But if I'm going to be completely honest, it was actually easier with my citizen soldier friends around. The most patient, understanding, empathetic, caring, honorable bunch of weirdos I continue to have the privilege to call my friends. Thank you.